Here's what I propose, and join those who are proposing, is a diplomatic boycott for heads of state to go to China in light of a genocide that is ongoing while you're sitting there in your seats. It really begs the question, what moral authority do you have to speak again about human rights any place in the world?
That was Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Tuesday calling for a U.S. diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. To discuss the growing momentum of an Olympic boycott against China, we're joined by U.S. Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey, who co-chaired the hearing on the topic this week, and Reggie Littlejohn, founder and president of Women's Rights Without Frontiers, who testified. Thank you both for being here. Congressman Smith, China, in response to the call for a diplomatic boycott, is saying Pelosi is full of lies and false information. Your idea, and whether you think a diplomatic boycott is a cop-out.
Well, I don't think diplomatic is strong enough. It's not commensurate with the gravity of a genocide against an entire people, the people of Xinjiang, the Muslim Uyghurs, and the Kazakhs. It's the most horrific thing we've seen. 1 to 3 million people in concentration camps, the use of forced abortion and forced sterilization to bring the numbers of children down, the kidnapping of their children and raising them in a non-Uyghur setting. This is outrageous. It's Xi Jinping, the dictator of China, that's doing it. It's his idea. So I think we need a penalty that comports with the gravity of the heinous crime, and then add Hong Kong and all the other human rights abuses that have been worsened under Xi Jinping. There needs to be a change of venue, move it to another city. It could be done if there's the political will. The IOC ought to do that, and we ought to be pushing for it as a country, and others should join us, or just boycott it. You can't go to this is 1936 and the Nazis all over again.
Reggie, you testified to Congress calling for the boycott of the Winter Olympics, saying China's violating the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. How so?
Well, okay, as Congressman Smith just outlined, they are committing genocide against the Uyghur people. That has been established by Secretary of State Pompeo, and it has been affirmed by Blinken. So this is a bipartisan agreement that they are committing genocide. They are systematically killing and destroying the culture of the Uyghur people. So in 1948, in response to Hitler's genocide, there were 150 nations got together to condemn the crime of genocide, saying that they will undertake to prevent and punish anyone who commits genocide. We are signatories to that convention, and therefore we are contractually bound under international law to prevent and punish genocide. And as Congressman Smith said, I think that a diplomatic boycott is not strong enough given the gravity of the genocide and the other atrocities that they are committing, such as 400 million forced abortions under the one-child policy and the many other grave crimes against humanity that they are committing.
Congressman, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee submitted a written statement to the hearing acknowledging oppression of the Uyghur population, but they added past Olympic boycotts have failed to achieve political ends, and they should give all of us pause in considering another boycott. I want both of you to react to that, starting with Congressman Smith.
Sure. Past boycotting certainly has had an impact, but in this case, we are talking about a genocide and assault on all religious belief, including Christians, Tibetan Buddhists, Falun Gong, Muslim Uyghurs. It's called Sinitization, part of it. It is Xi Jinping, again, the mastermind behind all of this, who wants all faiths to grovel before him and his Chinese Communist Party, and to take out whole books of the Bible, passages, and then to completely run roughshod over even the officially recognized Catholic Patriotic Church or the Protestant Church. I mean, it is the worst thing. This is like Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution happening right before our eyes. And we have all of these corporate sponsors like Coca-Cola, Visa, who are going to make money hand over fist, continue their access to China. because they are so complicit in this. I will be doing a second hearing. I chaired this one and put it together. We're going to do another one where we'll invite the corporate sponsors, and that the IOC or the U.S. affiliate would not come and testify. I mean, they could have done it by, on Zoom or WebEx very easily, but they don't want to answer the hard questions. Added to this, and this is very important, all of the planning for this genocide happened concurrently at the exact same time as they were getting the Olympics awarded to them in 2015. They pledged to the Olympic Committee that they would follow human rights norms. We can't get any kind of transparency about what does that mean? Where is that written? They have not told us, because it is a farce. And when you talk about the man or woman who's being tortured, or the child inside one of their concentration camps, they have little patience for those kinds of niceties. This is a brutal dictatorship, and we should not be aiding and abetting such a dictatorship. Move to another place. It could be done.
Reggie, I have heard people make the argument that, look, these athletes, these American athletes trained for years to compete. They're representing their country. You shouldn't allow them to miss out on the opportunity. You can't boycott the Olympics. You would say what?
Well, first of all, I was a very committed and very mediocre athlete in high school and college. I know what it means to really want to compete. And so the first choice would be to move the Olympics, okay? The IOC can do this. And if they would just say that they were open to taking bids to move the Olympics, I have no doubt that many countries and cities would step up to the plate. So this can be avoided. But you know what? Even if it means boycotting the Olympics for these athletes, I think it needs to be done because of the gravity of the genocide that is happening today. And I would also say that I think that China should be banned from the Olympics. If we have a new city, South Africa was banned from the Olympics from 1964 to 1988 because of apartheid. And I think that this genocide is equally serious, and that China should be banned from the Olympics wherever it occurs. And beyond that, I think that they should be called a transnational criminal organization for the way that they have released the COVID-19 all over the world, and fentanyl as well. So that's beyond even banning them from the Olympics.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of Ronald Reagan, who we cut off all ties. You couldn't trade with Russia because of the nature of that regime at the time. I don't know why the same rules don't apply to China, except a lot of Americans, athletes, corporations are making tons of money off the Chinese market, and it's in their financial interest to keep doing it, even if that money or yen are coated in blood. During the hearing, there was a heartbreaking testimony from Raihan Assad. He's a Uyghur and a human rights lawyer and advocate about the imprisonment of her brother, rather. Listen.
My brother Akbar is a tech entrepreneur, media founder, philanthropist. Before having his life torn away for excelling while Uyghur, he was a tireless peace builder. Chinese media outlets extolled him as a star in a tech world. He was brutally imprisoned, and that was spring 2016. I have learned that my brother has been held and continues to be held in torture by solitary confinement, far from home, since January 2019.
Congressman, what kind of legislation could help further pressure China to end this type of human rights abuse?
Well, we've introduced legislation that would say clearly and unmistakably any product coming out of that region, the Xinjiang region, would be denied coming to our shores, would be inadmissible. Unless they could prove it was not made by a concentration camp. I'm introducing legislation to relink most favored nation status with human rights. Bill Clinton shamefully and I believe cowardly delinked it in 1994, May 26 to be exact. He had all this fanfare going for him, how he was fighting for human rights, and then he blinked and he said, profits trump human rights. We could have made a tremendous difference in the evolution of the government of China had we said it's conditioned. You want trade and you're an export economy, you get it if and only if you have significant progress in human rights. I'm going to introduce that legislation very, very shortly. But they only understand one thing, they being the Chinese Communist Party, and that's power, and that's resoluteness. All of this kowtowing being done by the administration simply enables They think they can take advantage of us, and they do, and they've been doing it for decades.
I've got to ask you this, Reggie. There was something President Biden said the other day during a Coast Guard commencement ceremony. Listen to this.
There's a saying we use in a different context, a Chinese saying. It says, women hold up half the world. It's an absolutely stupid position not to make sure they represent at least half of what we do.
Your reaction to that and the source of that quote?
Well, first of all, Raymond, he misquoted. This is a quote from Mao Zedong, who established, who took over China, established the Chinese Communist Party. And the quote is, women hold up half the sky, not the world. So he's going to be quoting Mao. He should at least get his quote right. But it's an outrage that he's saying this at the Coast Guard with these young people who are committing their lives to defending the freedoms of the United States and quoting one of the greatest totalitarian mass murderers in the history of the world, whose regime has forcibly aborted 400 million women. Okay, so the Chinese Communist Party since Mao has been one of the, arguably the worst violator of women's rights in the world today and in the history of the world. So for him to lift up that quote in support of women is ridiculous.
And let me answer that if I could, Raymond. Bill
Very
Clinton
quickly, Chris, go ahead.
Already has reversed the prohibition of funding to the UN Population Fund because of its hand-in-glove relationship with forced abortion and forced sterilization. That is outrageous. He's looking to increase the amount of money to the organization that ought to be held accountable for enabling coercive population control and the gender side of women in China.
Congressman Chris Smith, Reggie Littlejohn, I thank you both for your insight. We'll have to have you back. So much to get into in this region, and I thank you for your insight today.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.